On today's episode of The Yips, we have on Shae Taylor. Shae has worked closely with some high-profile people in the sporting world to co-found Talent Depot. We talk about that, his Yips moment as a college athlete, and his take on attending live sporting events. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome to the Yips podcast. I'm your host, Caleb. Co-host is Chase, as always, and today we have on Shae Taylor. Shae, how you doing?
Hey, doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Shae is a founder and CEO of Talent Depot, which could go a multitude of ways, but we're going to dive into it. Before I do, got to ask my best friend Chase, what's going on, Chase?
Not a whole lot. I was thinking, I knew you were going to ask, and so I was thinking about something I could share, but the only thing I think of is I had a weird dream last night about having an ear infection, but other than that, they wouldn't give me the medicine. They wouldn't take care of me. I had outstanding medical bills that were fake, and so I was fighting it for an hour in my dream. And now my
declined
ear hurt. When I woke up,
claims?
my ear hurt. So, I mean, you tell me.
Okay, well, thank you for the input. So, Shae, being a CEO and founder of Talent Depot, first, why don't we dive into actually what is Talent Depot, and then we'll kind of backtrack into how you got to creating this in the first place.
Yeah. So Talent Depot is a destination where we want young people to come to find their talent matches, find their path, and then find the people who can help them get to where they deserve to go. And essentially what we're kind of seeing in the market is a lot of people are going to tell you where to go and what to do. But you can't meet the right people for you unless you kind of have an idea of where people like you are succeeding in the world. And that's one thing that no one really knows. And so that's one of the focus areas of Talent Depot was let's accelerate our ability to help these kids. And as we do it, we give them hope, we give them direction, give them a clear vision of the opportunities for their future that a lot of people can't give them. A lot of well-intentioned people out there in the world are trying to help younger people. And I would say 12 to 25 years old. And they just, they're good intentions, not very informed. And so people are wasting a lot of time chasing the wrong dream or have no dream.
Interesting. And what led you to actually have that idea? What sparked the whole initiative here?
Well, the spark versus the source is two different things, I think. The spark actually came when Thurl Bailey called me one day.
Big T. Nice.
Yeah,
okay.
Big T, man. Big shout out.
I can't wait. I want to get some phone calls from Big T.
Jeez. Yeah. He called me in, I think it was 2013 or something. And he told me that the governor of Utah had asked him to be the ambassador for all the refugees in the state of Utah. And there's 50,000 of them living on welfare, $8.50 jobs. And he called me and said, "Hey, I need some help." And I was like, "Well, you know what? What do you need my help for? Your Rolodex is deep. Who am I?" And he said, "No, we need an out-of-the-box way to approach this problem. And you're the biggest, most out-of-the-box thinker I've ever met in my life. And so I would like your opinion on how we should tackle this problem."
Some high praise.
Yeah. And that was the spark because no one else ever before that, and I had a master's degree and have been in all these places that we can talk about later, where someone actually told me how I was different than a lot of the other people in the world, that I was good at something specific. And so that resonated with me from years before where I was really good at sports as a kid. And no one really worried about telling you what you're good at beyond sports because that you were getting all the accolades if you're really good. And so I literally just think back of how far I went through all the different leagues into college and into grad school and everywhere. And I'm like, all these people taught me things. They taught me information, but they never helped me truly find what I was good at. And to me, that was a disservice to me that they did. Well-intentioned people, and it was not wrong what they were doing, but ultimately I was wasting a lot of my time. I did not find my path and did not find my people for a very long time. So when Thurl challenged me with on that day when he called me, he said, look, I've been asked to help come up with a new vision, help these people come up with a new vision of the potential opportunities for their future now that they're free. And I need your help. I was like, yeah, we all need to be able to create a new vision for our futures whenever we need to restart, right? Or start in the first place. And these people had to restart their entire lives. And so who's going to give them a vision of what things could look like in Utah for them at that time? And so that's how one of the projects that I got to work on with Thurl was, how do we solve that? And that actually is what Talent Depot became years later.
Okay.
Now.
So that was essentially
that was
a progression of that then.
It was a progression from that very moment. He called me, he challenged me, and I was like, I couldn't sleep for like 24 hours, and all these ideas came to my mind. And I was like, as I was reading content that he sent me, and the first person that I told him we needed to get involved was Stedman Graham, Oprah's life partner. And so I emailed Stedman and told him, hey, this is something that we want to do maybe. And he said, let's get on a call with Thurl, and got them on he didn't know Thurl at the time, and got them on a call. And anyway, story goes on, but
yeah,
no,
that's great, man. That's super cool. So, okay. Well, I want to continue on that, but how did you meet Thurl Bailey? I mean, all's well and good when Thurl calls you up and says, hey, let me inspire you real quick and let's get going. I need your help on something. But I took a picture with Thurl Bailey when I was like 7.
Yeah.
But I don't know, so how does that interaction, how did you build that relationship? Because it sounds like, just from the quick comment you've made, relationships is what has gotten you to where you are right now, which is super interesting. How you got there. So
yeah, and that's the third element of what Talent Depot is built to do, is help you find the right people for you, right? And so how did I meet Thurl? So I'm going to tell you something that I think a lot of people would think was a bad decision that I made in my life. And it turned out to be one of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire life.
Okay.
So I went to grad school. I went to the University of San Francisco Sports Management Master's Degree Program. Okay. And that's where I was with the Warriors and Raiders and like all these places. At the end, so I was married, and we had a 1-year-old. And at the end, I got offered a job at Stanford University at CBS College Sports. Okay.
Wow.
And so I had all the intention of the world of working in the sports industry directly. And this was back in 2007, right? So almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And the problem was the first jobs in sports are not high paying jobs. Okay. And when you are married and when you have a kid, and when you're trying to live in a market that's really a big market, a big sports market like San Francisco, it's very expensive to live.
Yeah.
And so when we looked at the offer and what was going on, we just realized, hey, this is not something that we can do. Right? We can't make this next year happen for our little family if I take this job.
Yeah.
And we prayed about it, and I had the hardest time because I was like, man, I got debt, and I'm walking out and I'm doing all this stuff. I asked them, I said, look, is there something in the Utah market, which is where I had come from, right? Because I did my undergrad at BYU. And they called around and looked to see if there was something there, because I could live on the wage that they were going to provide me over in that market. And there was nothing there. And so I was like, I'm so sorry. I can't do this. And so I moved back to Utah, just thinking, I don't know what's going to happen. And after a couple of months there, I found I reconnected with a friend that I ran track with at BYU. And he had a technology. It was the first time I've ever, because this is back when I didn't really, technology is new, you guys, right? And back then, what we're talking about, it was not what it is today. A lot has happened.
Facebook was just starting in 2007, 2008 time.
That's right. Exactly. And I was one of the first million people like on LinkedIn. Do you know what I'm saying?
You get something special for that?
I don't know, man. I should have. But no, all my friends, I sent it out to all my friends at University of San Francisco, my cohort, and they're like, what's this? We don't want to join that, And I was like, I don't even know what it is, And so you can see from, 2007 to right now what LinkedIn has become. And that's just ridiculous. Anyway, sorry for sidetracking. Long story.
Oh,
That's how I
that's
met
the
Thurl,
name
but
of our podcast is Sidetrack.
great. I turned
Halftime.
down that job at Stanford, went back to Utah, went and talked to one of my old buddies that had a technology. And for some reason, as he was explaining to me the technology that was going on, my mind started to formulate all these ideas of how what I learned in the sports world could be adjusted, how this technology could be adjusted to boost fan engagement into the future. And so I went up to the whiteboard and I drew all these things out and was like, "Hey, this is what I would do if I was you, and this is what I think you could do. You're in a great spot." And he hired me, gave me a salary, gave me equity in the company, and on the board was one of a guy that is heavy in the entertainment industry with guys like Snoop Dogg. Another guy was Phil Mickelson's head of sponsorship sales, and Bruce Willis's college roommate, and then after working there for like a year, we switched our model just a little bit. And he said, "I need to bring in a guy named Thurl Bailey to help lead this division." And so I got to go meet Thurl for the very first time. I remember we walked into a restaurant in American Fork, Utah, and he was sitting there. And you know how, like, I haven't been around a lot of celebrities at that point in my life. And so I was walking up to him and I started to get really nervous, right? Like, okay. And so we went over there and was just sitting and I was just listening. And he was the nicest person I ever met that day, and probably still to this day. Kindest, most authentic person, and probably the most authentic celebrity you're ever going to meet.
I've heard nothing but good about Thurl. I mean, I hear him. I watch jazz games, so
Yeah.
I hear him a lot.
Yeah.
I hear him talking, but he seems just kind of like that kind of guy, just salt of the earth type.
Right. Well, and so the funny thing about that is that whole first year after that, every time you wonder what those guys do after they leave, right? After they leave the game and go home after the broadcast, he was calling me like every night, "What's our plan for tomorrow?" That first year that I met him. And so I was up, my wife's like going to bed. He's calling me at 10:30 at night till like 11:15 on his drive back to his house.
Wow.
And so that was my first introductions to him.
Well, we're pretty popular ourselves, Shae. So you don't have to be nervous around us like you were
Right.
with Thurl.
Right. I appreciate that. I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm going to.
Yeah,
I'm not 7 foot, but
And so after that experience, obviously things went well, and you maintained that relationship with him. What are some of the other things that you've done leading up to the expansion and growth of Sports Depot or Talent Depot? Sorry.
Well, so it turns out I'm pretty entrepreneurial, right? And people like involving me in dreaming sessions, in brainstorming sessions, because I can come up with crazy ideas that every 10th one might be good, or someone else every 20th or 30th one might be good. I don't know. And one of the interesting things is when you're trying to innovate and you're trying to do some of these things, some things work out and other things don't, right? And lots of times you have to have financing to be able to accelerate your ability to succeed. And if it doesn't appear, then you got to move on to the next thing. You can't always control that unless you're like independently wealthy, like Elon Musk, right? Where it's like, well, I just want to try this until it works.
just want to try to go to space. We'll see if it works.
Yeah, I think all of us could really do pretty well if we got to try it until it works, and just keep flooding the thing. And so Thurl and I actually, this is kind of funny. No one really knows this except for the small group of people, but after kind of the part that we were working on a company called Fan Video Mail, right? Where we wanted fans to be able to receive messages from everybody. And now that's called Cameo.
Oh, really? No way.
Yeah. So we didn't turn it into Cameo. We had the idea back in 2010, 2011, and we were organizing a group of people and we tried to fund it. And if you pay attention to history, in 2009, 2010, 2011, there was a big recession and people weren't investing in startups. And so we were like, great, we got a great idea. We got a lot of people. Where's the money? What's going to happen? But my takeaway from this and how I built relationships is in your success and in your shortcomings, in your failures and whatever it is, find the silver lining and love the people that you're around, enjoy the experiences that you're gifted with, and just move forward. Find the next thing, right? And keep that on the burner, right? Because we didn't know Cameo and those different things didn't come out for a while, right? And so when I saw it, I was like, dude, we would have beat Cameo out of the water if people would have invested us. Like, no big deal, you know. and and one of the other companies and things that we were working on before that one, some of the things aren't even in existence today. Where I still got those on the pipeline, where we're like, the market's unfolding, you know. And then there's been a number of projects, but that's kind of the beauty of it is Thurl had like a radio show that he was doing a while back, and so I was a market research analyst for him for all of his guests, right? Like he had a number of geez, what's that guy's name? Kwaku Mandela, the grandson of Nelson Mandela, was on there. And so I got to help him prepare and do lots of these things. And so you just rub shoulders in different ways, right? And you're like, whatever you're doing, I want to be a part of it, even if you're doing all the grind work, right? You just what needs done. And so that's how I built a lot of relationships.
Yeah. I've noticed that most entrepreneurs, once they have one success, they just go on to make another success. Like my current CEO, he made a company called Omniture, which then was sold to Adobe. It's a very technical product, but he made out like a bandit. And then he just afterwards he tries to retire for like 2 years. He was like, nah, I'm bored of this. And then he just goes and starts another company, and that's the one that I'm working at now. 10 years after he starts it. And I'm like, once you have that first success, it just seems like, I don't know if it's because you have the money to support it, or if you have the network and relationships to support it, or if you're just like a genius. But I commend your entrepreneurship mindset and abilities.
Well, thank you. Well, so I know who you're talking about, and I know who you work for, right? And I was down there in Utah.
Caleb, he knows everyone. If you name drop someone, he knows.
Guess so.
Clearly.
You didn't even have to say who it was. But so when I was down there in Utah in the early days of technology, I knew nothing about technology. I didn't know who any of that crowd was or what was going on. But it was clear and evident that the minute that Omniture sold, everything in Utah started to change. Right?
Yeah. So it was a turning point for Silicon Slopes, that's for sure.
Massive thing happened. And so one of the things that I want to use Talent Depot for is I want to be able to go into any community throughout the world, and I want to be able to find people who are like those successful individuals and have the raw capabilities that just need nurtured and to have resources surrounded by them so that they have a chance to just play in a playground for a little bit, play in the sandbox, just like we do with athletes, right? How many players are great college athletes? They go into the pros and they just suck. Yeah. Right? They don't become anything. Or they make some money and they do whatever. In entrepreneurship and in some of these other fields, we're not as forgiving. We don't do that. And in entrepreneurship, there's going to be failure. Okay. And that's what they're saying right now. And everyone will tell you, Mark Zuckerberg and everyone, you have to iterate, and you have to iterate fast, right? Get it figured out, try something, and just keep going. Listen to the market and what it's going to say. Those guys did it, with Omniture, and people want to invest in successful people who've already been successful. And that's kind of like saying, in my mind, I agree with that, but I also really, really disagree with where the world's headed a little bit in that direction. I think that we need to be better at and use the data that exists in the world to be able to find people sooner in all industries, segments, and nurture them as effectively as we do sports and entertainment, music, and everything like that.
Yeah.
Because we can and we should. And I say that because they transformed the values of all those homes in Utah. They brought in all that business and they did everything because they're like, wait, this is a tech hub. This has potential here.
Yeah.
These guys are here. And then all of a sudden everything started happening. You're like, wait, because just a couple guys made it big? well, why don't we do that more intentionally across the area? Let's give kids a chance to make it big.
Yeah.
Let's find some of those people. Anyway.
So talking about that, you're saying how you kind of adapt and iterate and change. How is it different now, your experience based on where it was as an idea where you guys talked about it and like you said, you were up all night, you had all these ideas of what it could be and the potential, and you felt that.
Yeah.
How has it changed from now or from then to now?
Well, things evolve, right? Like over time, you need essentially to be patient with the process at first because you really don't know how the customers are going to respond. That's the one thing that everyone kind of talks about. Customers don't even know what they want. It's kind of the perceived value you create and then how you navigate them along the path, right? It's like, here, cool, come over here. This is going to be really cool. And you're like, okay, that sounds fun. And then all of a sudden you do it. But nowadays it's a lot faster because I've kind of honed my skills in the product management side over the last 10 years versus those first, I don't know, the first times working with Thurl leading into that. In the first 2 years, I was more like, hey, I'm the idea guy and this is this. But then I had to start working with tons of designers and programmers and customers and stakeholders and raising a bunch of money. And so now I'm like, okay, well, I can iterate faster because it's all in my head. And so I would say I've done like 10 people's jobs over the last 10 years so that we can move fast.
Only 10? I feel like 10 is probably shorting yourself.
I think probably more, at the end of the day, because of the speed at which you go. So people will say, well, how much money is in X, right? In certain projects or whatever it is. And it's like, well, should I count up all those 10 people's jobs that would have taken to get to where I'm at today? Now we're talking $10 million, and the pace at which a lot of these companies go that are older or whatever, it's so slow, the movements, right? It's a big ship and you got to decide. You don't even want to steer that direction. So I love the startup world. I think it's fascinating. I think having something that you're passionate about, that you want to build yourself, is a great thing to wake up to in the morning, and to realize something. I think there's something to realize in that. You don't need it to become the unicorn for you to be happy. You're going to find happiness in the journey, right? And that's what I learned early on, because we had the struggles with the recessions and the different things where investors were coming. I'm like, wait, so this didn't work, but I had a blast. I met Thurl Bailey and I met all these amazing people, and I'm happy. I'm not seeing where like the market's saying I should be sad, because like you didn't, sell for $1 billion. Like, there's more to it.
I'm just going to direct anyone that doesn't like the journey to just go watch Bilbo Baggins. What he accomplished in the journey, it's just, you can't touch it. It's just next level. So thank you for that comparison, Shae.
That was not what I was thinking was going to come out of your mouth. It was so far away from what I thought you were going to say when you slowly entered. If you don't know.
Got to keep you on your toes. So for the people that are just listening and not watching the video form of this podcast, Shae is wearing an Ohio State hat. And
oh yeah, here we go.
Chase thinks there is some, look at that, Ohio State football.
Hey, Jam, I know you're listening. Jam, I need you back here. Okay. We need to pull out those Alabama championship rings and let's fix this.
Last week we had a guy named Jamal Walton. He went by Jam, and he worked at Alabama when they won some championships. So that just
good for him.
Chase is an Alabama fan, so
Tide.
he was on cloud nine. We've been on the cloud nine for the past month, being the most recent champions with Ohio State. But I'm curious, why are you a Buckeyes fan? I mean, I love it, I support it, but I'm curious why.
But yeah, why? Why is anyone? That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I have a lot of people that ask me that, especially since we have a divide in my house. My wife and her entire family are all Michigan fans.
How did you fall in love with her, Shae? We got to talk about some
because
things.
At that time I was not an Ohio State fan.
Okay. Bandwagon.
Married into the family, and I was like, "You guys like Michigan? Well, Ohio State like wins all the time. I'm going to go with Ohio State."
Yeah.
And that was 20 years ago, and so every time they're like, you have no idea why you actually like them other than because it makes us mad. And I'm like, well, maybe that might be the real reason why it started. But I actually think that they have a great program and great football and all of that. And so it has lasted and it has made things exciting. They got the best of us the last couple of years, and it's a little bit embarrassing what happened this year. But hey, we won the championship, and I don't know. It's remarkable how many people go through Ohio State to the NFL on a continual basis, kind of like Alabama, kind of like Georgia. That's respectable. As a sports professional, that's hard thing to duplicate. A lot of people, a lot of programs can't do that.
I like to say all roads lead to Columbus because people mixed it up. They said Rome initially. No, they paraphrased that because it's actually Columbus.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Good to know. So if you have more Ohio State fans and friends, please invite them to the podcast. Because
I'll talk to them, but listen. I'm just not going to believe that it's not a conspiracy.
Why is Chase an Alabama fan?
I lived in Alabama for a few years, and that's all I got.
He's a bandwagon.
I'm not a bandwagon.
I was like, yeah.
I lived there. I lived there when they won a championship. That was a big deal. I lived right in Tuscaloosa, right in
Back
the area.
in 2015?
2016.
16?
Yep.
Okay.
2016. And so, I don't know. It just spoke to me. I mean, I went to Nick Saban's house one time. He wasn't there, but I was
toilet
at
paper
the house.
Oh.
No, I didn't toilet paper it. No, I got too much respect. He's a member of the Godhead out there. That you're playing with fire if you mess with him.
Yeah.
So just a lot of experience there, and then came back to Utah, and Alabama seemed like a better fit for how I wanted to follow sports. So
that on the Masters shirt. Is that a Masters shirt you're wearing?
It is. Hey, shout out. I know he's listening. I got a buddy that hooked me up with this jacket one way or another, and it's got to be my favorite jacket. It's so soft. I don't even know if it was purchased at the Masters, but everyone thinks I went to the Masters after looking at this.
I did.
So,
have you been to the Masters, Shae?
I have not. My one of my mentors in that first company that was Phil Mickelson's head of sponsorship sales invited me like 4 years in a row to go hang out and do stuff. Yeah,
you didn't go,
dude. I was married and I had a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, and life's not as simple when you're managing and juggling so many different things. You can't be like, hey, I'm going to disappear for 4 days, and go. That's not been my lot in life. But those were the types of relationships. Remember what I told you? I turned down that first job at Stanford University, and people say you're stupid, and I'm like, I don't know, man.
Hey, you have it has worked out well. But when you told that story, and then you continued on by saying that your wife's family was all Michigan fans, and just to make them mad, you decided to be an Ohio State fan. I was like, man, and you still married into the family.
Oh, yeah.
If maybe that's a strategy. Maybe you don't just agree with what they say. Maybe there has to be some conflict there to actually really,
Yeah, to capture my interest, to make it interesting. Otherwise, I don't even going to pay attention.
So is that why you got invited 4 times for the Masters? Or you just keep dragging them on like, nah, I'm good. No, everyone wants this.
Have you noticed that's a trend? Did you guys ever try like just dating and going just like smothering the girl like that doesn't know you versus playing it cool and like holding back?
Yeah, but the difference is I smothered my wife so much that she just gave in. So
yeah.
Little known fact, I don't think we talked about it on this podcast, but Caleb actually tried to break us up. Because I was
you don't know, okay, that's
best friend.
That is very misconstrued in your phrase.
Completely accurate. So we won't get into it now, so you don't have to bear with us. But
how
anyways,
long did you guys know your wives? Date them before you got married. Know them, date them before you got married.
I think I was just over a year before we were married. Yeah. Caleb, how long were you?
Well, I had met her for 4 years prior, but we didn't start dating. Well, we met, and then 4 years later we started dating, and then
never talked in between that time.
Well, correct. we liked each other's Facebook posts and whatnot occasionally.
That's talking in the younger generation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we didn't really talk during that 4 years, and then we got married 5 months later once we started dating. So
Yeah.
it was
Okay.
pretty quick. You're making us divulge secrets to our listeners, Shae, that we did not anticipate.
I don't know how we got here, to be honest.
That's because I
He's
was gonna
interviewing
see
us.
if I wanted to see if I beat you. And I met my wife. 3 weeks later, we were engaged. 2 months later, we were married. We've
You
been
win.
married
That was
20
close.
years.
When were you engaged, Caleb? How long?
We were engaged 5 weeks after we started dating.
So it's close.
Yeah. Hey, great things happen.
They were even
man.
long
You know,
distance. They were even long distance.
Yeah.
They'd only, well, it was only a few weekends you guys actually spent together, right?
Okay, you're really making it sound bad, Chase. Anyway, here we are over 7 years later, and we have 3
time.
kids, and it's great. It's great. Now, I want to ask something. You turned down all these Masters games after, I assume you like golf for the majority of your life.
Yeah.
And in the past 2 decades that you've been an Ohio State fan, have you been to any Ohio State games?
I actually have not.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I've wanted to, but the
He's been invited down the field, too.
Yeah, and turn it down.
no. I live in Boise now, and I have for the last while. And there's something about just being able to turn on your TV and watch it, and be able
Boom,
to.
Caleb.
No, don't say that, Shae.
Shae, you are on fire right now, okay? Let me explain something, too. Caleb just went to the Ohio State-Texas game, spent all this money, all this stuff to go to it.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I can just watch it from my TV, and I save however many $100, and I'm just comfortable. I smoked wings in the backyard.
Yeah.
It's good, you know? And we've been having this debate back and forth, and I think he just cleaned house. We're good to go, Caleb. You were wrong.
Well, so here's the thing. Like early on, after I met Thurl, something kind of happened, and after I left BYU and I went to Stanford, I started it. I was like, well, BYU and these guys at the time, they were good, but to me, it really wasn't football yet. They're not what they are today, still kind of in these scenarios, and things became quite different. And so it wasn't interesting to me to go to the game. Like I have some people that work with Michael Jordan and all these different,
Oh, yeah, there you go.
And
It's
I'm
nonchalant. I have a Michael Jordan connection. Okay, Shae.
yeah, but they're like, well, people were like, oh, do you hope to meet him, or what would you be? I was like, I don't want to meet Michael. I want to do business with Michael, right? I don't want to go to that game. I want to be, working with some of the players to go change the world and do stuff. Like, so I respect the game, but I'm not a fan of, like, does that make sense? Like I've always just kind of pulled back just a little bit and be like, great. I don't want to be your fan. I want to be in the group and doing business and creating change. And those guys, they can sniff out the people who are the fans and know who to distance and who not to distance, from them. And luckily, through some of the connections and things that I've built, I'm not connected. The people that I'm connected to are massively connected, and so you just got to enjoy the trenches for a minute and not act like the fan, Caleb. Oh,
No.
I'm just kidding.
It was an awesome
Dude, I
game.
would've
Should have been there.
If you would have
Great.
called and said, "Hey, we're going, and I really need you to come. We're going to do the podcast there," I'd be like, "Hey, babe, I gotta," right? Like,
Caleb, he turned down Augusta, and he would have accepted that. It's big praise right there.
Yeah, yips on the road. It's gonna happen.
Yep.
We're gonna hit the road. Do it right outside the stadium. Although it was pretty chilly in Dallas,
Yeah.
but
yeah,
Well, Shae, did you ever go to, this was a good year to be in Boise.
Yeah.
With Boise State. Did you go to any games this year?
dude, you guys are killing me.
Well,
I love watching games. So I got to tell you, I have a kid that I coached growing up who's on the team.
his name is Ashton Genty.
the way it's going, huh?
Well, his name is Tyler Crow, and Tyler Crow is the only one who scored the touchdown in that game, basically
In the playoff game?
to give the opportunity in the Fiesta Bowl. And he's like great friends with Genty, right? And so Tyler is the most remarkable story. And all these people kept telling me, Ashton Genty is going to be amazing this year. All these young kids. And I was like, whatever, it's not, I'm not even paying attention to it halfway through the season. But I was always interested in Tyler Crow because Tyler Crow, not only did I coach him, but he was the top player out of high school in Idaho and got like no offers and walked on Boise State and kept playing and playing through all the chaos and the changes and the staff and everything. And then he is there with Genty, and you see all these plays, and you're just proud of like the accomplishments of one of the kids that you had the chance to coach early on.
Mm.
And I'm just like in awe. And his mom was actually one of my high school teachers, and
Oh, really?
coached me in track. And so I met Tyler because when I moved back to the area, she said, "Hey, will you come and coach track and help Tyler and some of these kids?" Because I high jumped at BYU. That's why I went down to BYU.
We gotta get to your college days, Shae. That's a whole other nut we gotta crack, but we'll get there.
That's awesome. So no, you didn't go to any games. That was your long-winded answer.
My
of saying
long-winded
no.
answer. Sorry.
Okay.
My wife would be like,
okay.
"Hey, just answer the question." I'll be like,
No. I appreciate it.
This is the Ohio State way to answer it. If you don't like it, put on your Michigan
Exactly.
hat.
Exactly. No, we're up here in Boise too.
You guys both are?
No. Caleb's in Utah. Lame. But we're up here, me and my family. And you know what? We were talking. So we had the athletic director, Jeremiah Dickey, on the week before the playoff game. Was that
nice.
what it was, Caleb?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was end of January sometime.
And we were talking about the community and how it had changed because of what was going on with the team a little bit. And I was like, yeah, it's true because, you know, I grew up in Utah and then lived in Alabama for a little bit, became an Alabama fan, came here, wasn't too sure I was going to, you know, jump in on the
Boise State fan.
And I don't listen, I'm developing, I'm growing as a person.
And so why can we not make it real then and actually get you?
Well, we did make it. Ask Caleb. What did I go do to try to make it real? Caleb.
He went and got a big head of Ashton Genty on his wall.
No, I did not.
No,
I went to Shields.
He got a
Shields opens
Boise
up,
State
and I go get a Boise State helmet, one of those little plastic Boise State helmets. I'm like, this is it. I'm gonna be a Boise State. What's like just under fan?
Yeah.
Supporter. Does that count?
Observer?
No, that's too low. Yeah. So supporter. And we went to a few games and it was fun. It was really good. But I was just saying, I would not, had the team not like the engagement, and since the last few years as Boise State's gotten better, I would say overall sports across the board and more. Talking to him, it seemed like they were doing more outreach, trying to get people more involved and stuff like that. Yeah, I've noticed it. I've sensed the difference.
It was an exciting year. I'll be honest with you. This was the year that they needed. And I really, really hope that they can find a way to keep some momentum going now that he's going to be gone, because special players like that aren't always there. And that is why special players matter so much to teams. I mean, look at Patrick Mahomes, right? Take Patrick Mahomes out the Chiefs and what happens? We don't going
to the Super Bowl this year.
Special, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what there's a lot of teams in the NFL, and not all of them can perform, even though they're all making money, you know?
It's true.
So, the name of our podcast is called The Yips. And if you're not familiar with the Yips, it's a moment of time that, or a span of time that you can't make that putt, can't hit the back of the net, can't make a basket in basketball. So with your experience in high jump, do you ever have a Yips moment? You want to divulge that, Shae?
In the high jump?
Well, it could be at any point in life, but that's what I'm thinking.
Oh,
I can get, while you're thinking about it, I can give you some context. One of our first people we had on, he was a diver at BYU, and he did not tie his Speedo whenever he jumped in. Thing came off whenever he was going in the water, and come to find out, it was in Canada, and they had cameras under the swimming pool, and those cameras were showing up on the big screen and
live feed.
Yeah, he thought about just staying under the water, taking a big.
Hey, this is where it ends.
Big breath in. Yeah,
there we go.
So that's one of our top Yips moments. So if you have anything to try to top that, you are more than welcome to share.
Dude, that's like a tough one. That's like an embarrassing thing. And that's
that
one it's a high level to beat.
How does one have the Yips in high jump? High jump. It's like the same thing as pole vaulting, but without the pole.
Yeah.
But you're also not going like 15 feet into the air like pole vaulting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying pole vaulting has some danger to it. You know what I mean?
I had something. I don't know if it fits your context, but what came to mind when you were explaining it is what actually ended my high jump career.
Oh, Caleb, look what you've done.
This is
Bad memories.
And I probably shouldn't even tell you because no one that ever listens to us ever going to want to high jump again. But so I had high jumped at BYU for years, and I had jumped really high, lots and lots of times. Anyway, we went up to the University of Oregon at their track, and I wanted to try coming in at a height higher than I normally do, right? So I'd normally come in at like 6 feet 4 inches. Okay, that's where I would start, and I'm 6 feet tall.
You can jump that high?
Yeah, so I could jump 7 feet basically, and so I wanted to start. They normally start lower, okay, and you work your way up. You're warming up, right? You got to get your form, and you jump, and then you wait like 10 minutes, and then you jump again. It's not like you're going consistent because there's lots of people. Anyway, so I went, and I was like, today is going to be, I'm going to start a little bit later, right? So that I can go a little bit higher and save some energy for those later jumps, you know, and by skipping a height, I was going to do that. And so I went in and I ran and I went and I planted my foot and I never left the ground. I rolled my ankle. I rolled my ankle. No. I broke my foot on the inside, fractured my fibula on the outside.
Oh no.
And I ran right into the pit. And I was out. They had to come get me like football, right? And I had done this hundreds of times before.
Oh no.
No problems. And something happened where I was just too far behind it, and my foot and everything just gave in and just buckled. And so I broke my foot, broke everything, ended my high jumping career. That to me was yips. Holy crap.
That was yips. I could say that was yips because you wanted to go taller from the very beginning. Mentally, just maybe mentally, your foot thought, hey, I really need a little extra here.
Yeah.
You know, so your form was a little off, you know, and then I can't do this. Let's go. Yep.
Yeah. You know what? And then it ended my basically my career doing track at BYU, and
that's tragic. That's not funny.
It was not fun. It was sucked, but at the end of the day, I did it for a long time, and it served its purpose, you know. And
I guess as far as, you know, post college sports, you could have done the Olympics.
Yeah, in a wheelchair.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Do you have the Olympics? But you know, other than that, like what I was saying, you're not making a career out of high jumping, right?
No, people aren't making a career out of high jumping. You know?
See, I'm always hesitant to like say stuff like that because I've never high jumped in my life, but the people that's listening that do high jump, they might think I'm an idiot if I say something like that.
But that's the thing, Chase, is you got to do the stuff because you have fun for it, not because you're going to become this amazing person that makes all this money at it.
That's true.
You're good at it. You show some skill at it. You make some friends at it. And early on in my life, when I was going through high school and different things, there was so much focused on only winning, right? And that competitive edge and like cutthroat stuff. And fortunately, I responded really well to, you know, all the coaching and things that I got. And so I got really pretty good at football, basketball, and track. And I was recruited for all three to play in college. And so I didn't really understand why people were playing who weren't ever going to win.
Who stunk?
Yeah, who just weren't great. I was like, okay, well, I don't get it, right? Like, and then when I started coaching and when I became a dad, and you realize not everyone has the athletic abilities that other people have, but they're finding joy in the process and being a part of things, then I'm like, oh, geez, I really missed the boat a lot. I didn't see the big picture. I didn't understand. And that's one thing when in one of your questions is talking about the future of sports, right? I really think that with NIL, things are going to go down that road where everyone's going to expect the perfection and the amazingness from all these athletes. I think people are going to get burnt out. I think amazing kids are going to be not exposed to a lot of the relationships that they deserve to have because the kids who aren't as good are sometimes not going to be making the teams, and they could effectively be some of the best friends and later be the employers of some of these athletes who are overcommitted to their sport but not focused on career early enough. And I hope that it self-corrects a little bit. Hopefully with Talent Depot we'll be able to do something.
Yeah. You bring up a good point though, because that's interesting. we've never talked. We talked a lot about NIL, but we haven't talked about it in that way where the money actually increases the expectation and the pressure. Not only there's pressure, but the expectation, and how that might actually be a hindrance to the athletes, and how many athletes, like you have some of the no name that come up and just become stars. Ashton Genty's not a no name, but definitely not the same level recruited that some of the other big name players were around. So that's an interesting point. I don't think we've had that brought up before.
Yeah. Well, and as your kids, I'm not sure how old your guys' kids are, but mine's a freshman at college and then a junior in high school and a seventh grader. And when you see them and you see their friends and you see all this dynamic, you realize that the power of sports for good in communities at large is a very good thing. All of these people that are showing up in the stadiums, it's a good thing. But if you take away all the people who are not elite from the team and from the program, there will be no teams to play. There will not be people to block. There won't be practice squad people. There won't be ever. You have to develop an abundance of people at all these different levels to be able to create the product at the end of the day. And that's why, that's why I love sports. It has the ability to transform community, like you saw at Boise State this year. I mean, I live here, and people are all the time, my neighbors, I know who's BSU fans hardcore, and they know I'm a Ohio State fan hardcore. And so they'll be like, hey, great game, or hey, this, or hey, that. And that's what it deserves. It brings people together, or in my family's case, separates us a little bit. And then whoever wins the game, you ride high for
celebrate.
Yeah. Be happy for the other person.
So I love that you're bringing up kids and youth in sports. We've been blessed enough to have quite a few people that have worked with youth. Funny enough, they're actually both named Tim. Tim Smith works at BYU with their summer youth sports programs, and then we had someone named Tim Williams who created what's called the Playbook, which is just a book with all things sports, like rules and goals of the different teams, like offense, defense, what are you supposed to be doing? And he's out of Minnesota, I think. But we've been able to talk with these people about youth sports and the importance of it. So within your involvement in youth sports, what would you say is, both as a father, what's one of the top things that you do as a father with a kid in sports, but then also as an entrepreneur in the sporting world, what are some of your focuses to encourage these youth to continue to develop, even if they're not going to be those pros that we're talking about, but at the lower level, still good enough to play when they're older?
Yeah. So the first with the kids, with your own kids in sports, I was one of those kids because I played college in college and did it a lot. And I friends with a lot of Olympians and the NBA players and all this. My perspective, I'm going to tell you my perspective for a second. Thurl was the chairman of the board for the retired NBA players, and his job was to help them transition to a life without basketball. Okay. Massive amounts of problems, drugs, alcohol, substance abuse problems, divorce, bankruptcies, massive identity crisis when they retired. And so I saw firsthand tons of conversations with him and what was going on. And so that's when my kids were very young, right? Like 1, 2, 3 years old. And so when I went with his experience matched with my own experience of this, I never wanted to put pressure on my kids to really, really work hard to get into college to be able to do this, because I didn't think that was necessarily what's needed for someone to be happy, right? And I didn't think that at the end of the day, being a pro athlete was going to help you accomplish your wildest, your purpose for existing, right? I don't believe that. Yeah. And so when my own kids started to be in sports, I didn't ever push them. I supported them in whatever they wanted to try, the variety of options, right? I was nonstop, hardcore, always youth baseball, always youth basketball. There was never a day I wasn't at my team sport. I was living what people do nowadays that are hardcore. And I really felt like that's too much. I personally feel like it's too much. Kids are overcommitting to all of that. And parents are ignoring a lot of the cues that their kids are giving them with regards to other gifts and capacities that they have that they should be paying attention to and nurturing instead of only sports, music, dance, whatever it was. So when my kids came in and were doing certain things, actually all of them have not been the diehard hardcore. I want to go and compete and like be the best at this. And so that changed my perspective and helped me understand that they're having fun. And I'm as a dad, be there and just have fun with them and celebrate their success of doing their best and be happy for them with the progress that they do make. And if they sucked it up, and just didn't have a great time, like, didn't do as well as they hoped, really put perspective on it, right? How we respond to our kids is what they're going to value or not value about themselves and the situation. And I think people are really overvaluing the importance of a game and a record and taking the fun out of sports. And so then on the other hand, from a business side, when you're looking at youth sports and what's happening, there's a lot that people are going to be going and doing right now. And because of the people that I've been around, and because I kind of know the nature of and you guys know this, it's like at the top, these companies, it's never enough. It's never good enough for a successful company. And they're always going to be needing to push the limits on something. And so what I learned in this incubator out in Israel, right, that you had on the questions here, was I learned that actually all the companies that are out there that are trying to do stuff to boost fan engagement and to do all these different things and whatever, they don't really have the best interest of the kid as a human being at heart. And that disturbed me heavily, right? That goes against my value system and how I've built my life. And because of what I went through. Remember, I went all the way through a master's degree and I'm like, what am I good at? This is stupid.
Yeah.
Like, this is unfair. And not only that, guys, I had been an intern at Stanford, at Berkeley, at the Warriors, at Raiders, and at Octagon NFL agency with John Elway and Emmett Smith's agent. And still at the end, I'm like, who am I and what am I good at? And that was unfair. It was unfair to me. It was unfair to, and I just don't want people doing that. And so I think in youth sports, the opportunity is innovation is ripe for changing this just a little bit and help them find more of the right people for them. Right?
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, so I was super competitive as a kid, like ultra competitive. And I probably kept that ultra competitiveness a little too late into my, out of childhood and out of like high school and stuff. What?
Shae, you should see the times that we played ping pong together. Homeboy was just,
I'm not going to just let you win. I'm not going to let you win. Okay. I had a ping pong table in my garage growing up. What am I going to do? Which, by the way, hey, my ping pong tournament at work, it's going to come back around, Caleb. But I'm going to be the reigning champion 2-time.
Okay.
Anyways, yeah, it was. So I was probably a little too competitive. And then when we had our first child, I was like, hey, Women's World Cup on. I'm going to record her laying down as a baby, watching the women play in the World Cup. So when she's playing one day, I got a great story to send to ESPN. You know what I mean? Like you see all these movies about 3, 4, 5 years old. They're out. They're doing drills. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I just like, I had that ideology that maybe that's what it'd be like. Maybe they'll be stars, And I was like, it's just, you got to push too much of your own agenda to make that happen. And it just doesn't seem like, I mean, there's every once in a while you'll get someone that it works with and a kid really responds to it. But I feel like for the most part, you push them away. I mean, I coached my daughter's soccer team, and I remember we could have won it. I mean, we won every game, but we could have won real good. I had one kid on the team, and he was Mr. Anger Problems, right? 5-year-old anger, right? Yeah. And all I had to do was put him in and leave him in, and he would score like 7 goals, and then he'd get upset and go kick his mom because he was so upset that he just scored 6 goals. But he scored 6 goals, and we were like, bingo. And there was a few times when it got a little close, and I was like, all I have to do is bring on this kid, Hey, they're about to beat us. You want that to happen? And really rile them up, and we're going to win. But I did the better. So you be proud of me, Shae. I supported the kids' enjoyment. I held everyone's hands. I said, let's go play for fun.
Yeah. Well, you got to know what the team's made of, right? Like you're either going for the championship or you're you're not. You got to look at your squad and see what's going on. But to your point, and going back to that, I really think that all these older athletes that played in college and in the Olympians and everything, they're going to tell you the relationships was the most important part, that they value the most. And so if you say to the younger generation, build the relationships with your teammates and just honor it, you can get them to do what the older people actually value more than their money is their people, you know, and so get them to play and spend time with just young kids doing something instead of scrolling their phones, right? And clicking like and acting like that was actually something.
Yeah.
Well, we'll end with one more question here, and it's really about the future of sports and business and technology all coming together. So, where do you see the future of it? Do you see that there's just going to be continual innovation of having kids enjoy youth sports, or do you think there's going to be a plateau of, it really comes down to the coach or the parents and how they support or enforce their kids to play sports moving forward? But how do you see the future of youth sports with technology?
I think the pressure is really high right now, and I think that one of the things that we've seen is there's been a lot of pressure on the referees and the umpires in the games, and because of the stakes are getting higher and higher, and the parenting has already been out of control. Now that the NIL and all these different things exist, I think that we're going to have a wave of a little bit more chaos than what we're expecting, and the umpires and the coaches are not necessarily going to be able to handle it. Yes, in Florida, and yes, in Texas, where there's just like elite levels of competition at the high school level already, where they're probably paying their high school coaches mountains of money, comparatively to everywhere else. I think the rest of the United States is not going to be able to catch up with those areas. They won't suffer as much as everyone else while they all try to make that happen. My fear is that it's not focused on the kids; it's focused on the money, and so a lot of the kids probably that are going to be playing are not going to be enjoying it as much, right? I think their coaches are going to have too much pressure, and you can't always win, and people don't know how to lose, and people don't know how to lose graciously, right? And so I think that look at it this way, right? So I had the chance to meet a guy by the name of Dr. John W. Carlos, who in the 1968 Olympics won a medal and stood up on the platform, right? Raised his fist to help direct attention towards the inequalities in the world. Back at that time, the training facilities that we have today and the shoes are nowhere near the same. And yet those guys were running at incomparable, like just as good. Okay. And so if we think that technology in the future, 20 years, is actually going to make the kids better than what they are right now, just think of that comparison of what it was in 1968 versus now, that people were doing so much better, and so I think the technology and a lot of people are going to make a lot of money, but I don't actually picture the game improving that much more because of the technology. Case in point, when I was at BYU, they built that huge $100 million indoor football facility and all this stuff. And did they get better in the next 10 years? They really didn't.
Nope.
They didn't. They spent all that money and they didn't get better. And so what's the difference? They got world-class facilities, they got world-class coaches and all these different things. And so you really have to pay attention to what's happening. Money's moving around somewhere. And I'm just encouraging everyone to focus on relationships. If you focus on relationships and being happy, no matter where the sports industry goes, just, enjoy the enjoyment that it provides to you and to your family and to your kids, and don't buy into everything so much, on what's going to happen next. Everyone thinks AI and all these different types of things are going to, transform everything so much. It's like, you know what? Are you happy today? Did you get to spend time with your kids? Right. At the end of the day, if you didn't, a lot of the people that are creating all this technology wouldn't even use it. So go spend time with your own kids like they're trying to do, and then don't fall for that trap. That's my take on what's going to happen.
Love it. And that's been mentioned multiple times. Like whenever we have college athletes on our podcast, so many of them have done shout outs to their mentors or to their coaches or to people just that mean a lot to them. And that shows with all of our guests. So I think you preach good stuff there. Well, Shae, it's been awesome having you on and learning about not only your experiences, but your hot takes and whatnot on all things sports related. So thank you so much.
Hey, appreciate you. Thank you.
And to our listeners, don't forget to follow us and review us. We're on every social platform. And never stop loving sports. Catch us next time on The Yips.